It looks like we got more than we bargained for. This is the Knockhill review.
Hello and welcome back to the British Touring Car Podcast. You join us once again. We're going to take you through all the action from Knockhill this weekend. Doing it slightly differently this weekend, watching on the sofa. So we're going to bring you a race update after each race, which is why it will be a little cut together. And we'll have to update you on any progress throughout the day.
And it's why that for keen viewers will realise that I'm in a different outfit for this intro and race 3, but not for race 2 and 3. Race 1 and 2.
Oh dear, yeah, it's been an entertaining weekend with plenty of different results as well. And we say it right at the end. It's good to see different drivers up there taking race wins, being on the podium. And although the season looks like it may well have been decided, certainly at the top of the championship, there's still plenty to play for throughout it. And the results this weekend have played into that.
Absolutely. For those who didn't listen or haven't seen us talk about Saturday's action, there is a separate podcast for the qualifying and race to pole, so go and check that out. We've put a fair bit on our Facebook today about some of the stuff that happens during the racing, so thank you to everybody that has got involved in that. If you're not on our Facebook page, this is a good chance. I'll shout at you to do it again later, so you might as well just do it now. But yeah, this is a good chance to make sure you're across all of our socials and our YouTube /Spotify /Apple Podcast wherever you get your podcasts from.
Yes, thank you for all the interaction on the Saturday review. Pleased to see all them comments and all you people watching.
Knockhill does.
It does.
Stunning numbers, and I'm really pleased for that. So we might as well keep up our happiness by going straight into race 1.
Getting into race 1 then, and it's a little damp. Quite damp. Very, very wet, actually.
It's what the Scottish call summer.
Yes, yeah. I was quite surprised when I arrived here and you went, it's been raining a bit. Yeah. I was like, has it? That should make it nice and entertaining. And then I saw the pictures and I was like, oh. Yeah, okay.
I must admit, as I look out across all the burnt grass and outside my window, I would love that rain to be here.
Clear blue skies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would adore for that rain to be here. I can't remember the last time it rained here.
No, not can I. So, not of any significance anyway.
No, exactly. But yeah, it always makes for better racing. Unsurprisingly, the whole grid on wets.
Yes. Surprisingly, though, very civilised start on the first lap. I was expecting chaos and mayhem, a bit like what happened in the Legends race yesterday, which if you haven't seen that already, go and take a look. A big first corner accident.
Yep.
From what I'm aware, everyone seems to be okay, thankfully.
You say a civilised start, and you're right, apart from if you're Dan Camish, who decided that being in front of a marshal post meant that he would risk a little jump start.
Yeah, the car sort of like lurched forward, and I think we know that any slight movement always gets picked up, and it got picked up for a 10-second penalty for a false start because of that, and it is a slam dunk one. There's no...
If you move on the grid, once you've settled into your grid box, you cannot move until the lights go out. Otherwise, it is a slam dunk penalty. We've seen it 3 or 4 times this season. Yep. And I think we've always said that sort of thing, as well as the out of box start, it can happen to anybody. It's it is just what it is. But disappointing for him, of course, because I hadn't realised, sort of pointed out in the commentary, that he's not that far behind Ingram in the point standing. So, he'll be a little bit disappointed that happened.
De Leon managed to drop back quite early on, maybe struggling a little bit with the rear-wheel drive and the setup that they had on. However, it was Collard and Sutton that were on a charge in the early stages, both making up 3 places in the opening at 2 laps. And then Sutton, De Leon and Smiley decided 3 wide into the hairpin was a brilliant idea. I thought it was going to end in tears.
I had my hands over my face at this point as... it's just the way Sutton is, isn't it? I mean, it doesn't necessarily need to be like this, but yeah, he was very much on the charge, wasn't he? Yeah. I mean, we know he does well in wet weather conditions anyway, but...
Now, De Leon got sandwiched in between the 2 of them and actually managed to come out of the corner on top, which I was quite surprised by, but it wouldn't take long for Sutton to then get on past him as well. And then we had the first sort of like main incident of the race, which involved Patterson and Chilton going up through the chicane, and... racing incident for me. They come together. Plato. Chilton spins across the front of Patterson, off into the gravel, but because of how wet and compact the gravel is, Chilton was actually allowed to get going again, not causing a safety car.
Yeah, as I say, it was one of those. I've looked back on the replay, and there is no for Patterson to go. Even if he brakes sharply, he's still going to hit Chilton. They're both going for the same piece of tarmac. For me, it's it's unfortunate for Chilton, and why would Charles Rainford do this? But it is one of those things that's racing. That's touring car racing.
Rowbottom then managed to get past Shedden. Shedden had been doing a decent job of staying ahead. Rowbottom had been giving it goes throughout the whole circuit, really, but finally managed to find his way through.
Yeah, I'm amazed this didn't end in tears because, of course, these are two people that never really get into any contact or don't drive particularly hard against each other or against other drivers. So, yeah, I must admit, fair play to both drivers. Space was given, even there's a little bit of knocking on the way through. But yeah, I was expecting a bit of an accident.
Yeah, both drivers being from the old school, you expect a little bit of side-to-side movement, and that's what happened. But then it was Rainford that was looking quite threatening on the back of Shedden, and we thought he was actually going to tumble a couple of places, like we saw what happened with Dorlin yesterday.
It was really weird because for a lap or so, like Rainford was all across the back of Shedden's car, and then you cut back to the front, and Shedden was a couple of car lengths clear out of absolutely nowhere. So that was a bit surprising.
At this point, Morgan already had a fairly substantial lead, second and a half down the road, and was looking really quite comfortable. And as I said, Collard earlier, charging, still on the mission as well, was making up positions just ahead of Sutton, and Sutton was just ahead of Ingram still, which for his title fight is always where he wants to be.
But as has been the case all season, behind Sutton.
Yes, exactly. Moffat was quite surprising. By lap 6, he was up to 11th from the back of the grid. No evidence of any overtakes that he made or anything like that. It wasn't even picked up in commentary, which may or may not surprise you.
But it's a good to juxtapose. To compare, we'll go with that.
Yeah, go for that.
With Cook, who also started at the back of the grid and had made
wasn't into the points.
Absolutely no progress at this point, really. I think he got him to 17th, which I know, okay, you can say that that's a jump of about 8 places, my maths-ish, but
nearly.
But again, you're overtaking people you'd expect him to be overtaking.
Exactly, and one of those drivers that was falling through the field was Smiley.
Yeah.
He started in 4th, and I think by about lap 8, he'd lost 15 places, we're down in 19th, and there was no real reason as to why. He had a coming together at one point. With
but he was already way back down the field at that point. Yeah. I didn't see anything up front that would suggest why he got himself shuffled back, but it was a surprising one.
Compared with his teammate Dorlin as well, who was just inside the top 10 at this time, you thought, okay, the car had pace yesterday, we saw that. Yes, okay, change of conditions, but Dorlin was able to deal with it today as well.
Absolutely.
Then Sutton did manage to get past Collard for 4th. It was a bit of a risky move, though, wasn't it?
I was a bit surprised again. It didn't necessarily need to be as gung-ho as he was.
It almost felt like he left the door open for Rainford to have an attack on him first of all, and then cut back up the inside of Collard, as we know he does. Has a great front end on that napper.
It's just as well because he got tapped by Rainford going through, and he was a little bit sideways, and on a wet track through that part of the circuit, we've seen a lot of cars go round. So one of those where I think, I'll be honest with you, I think he got away with it.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's the kind of luck you need to be going places in this championship, and it seems to be all falling with Sutton still. Then we had an unfortunate meatball flag come out, so the orange circle on the black flag, meaning that a driver has damage on his car that needs to be attended to. This was shown to Rainford, who had like the rear diffuser splitter hanging off. We thought maybe a little bit of contact on the rear end would possibly even take it off for him and save him having to come into the pits, but that wasn't the case. He did have to come in, which lost him a load of positions, dropped him down to the back of the field, and really scuppered his race. Yeah,
I mean, there'll be some people who will, and Tim Harvey suggested it as well, as to why he didn't try and get it scraped off by somebody else or by De Leon, who before Raver came to the pit was behind him. Camish made a couple of points on this a few years ago when Sutton had the infamous rear wing over the rear wheel arch. That's what I'm looking for. Thank you. That these cars are going at 100 miles an hour plus. You can't just drive alongside and hope to rub it off. Like if De Leon goes,
the only time I've ever seen that be successful was Shedden and Snetterton, and he did it on a solid piece that was in the same place at every lap. If
it's on the front, then you might be able to just nudge a rector cell barrier and try and get it off that way. But the thing is, it's on the rear, so Rainford's got no control over what's going into him or how hard. It's not as simple as saying, "I'll just get De Leon to run up behind him and try and knock it off." You could
put both drivers off.
You could then bend the radiator on De Leon's car. You could upset the front springs. You could upset the chassis. You can completely change the balance. It's not as simple as that. And I think it's a bit of foolish of Harvey personally to suggest that was an option on the on comms, because These, as I say, these are cars going at 100 miles an hour. You wouldn't would you want to tap like that on the dual carriageway at 70?
No, definitely not. Ingram was then able to get past Collard in a move that you thought, you're surprised that Collard
it took so long,
through sooner, but also it wasn't like lift off on the straight, let him past. It was still a fairly battled pass.
Yeah, I mean, look, I can only compare it to the sort of passes Sutton's had on Camish in previous seasons.
What, on Robot missing a gear?
And Robot missing the gear in particular. Yeah, particularly Robot as well. It's a really good point, actually, and how easy that they make it for Sutton, as they should, because it's, you have to, bow to the better teammate who's got the bigger chance in the bigger picture. I'm just surprised here. I know he's got a race by race contract. He's got to try and keep sponsors and everybody happy, but also you've got to keep the team happy. And Ingram is desperate now. As I said it in the preview, we're running out of races quickly. And as I said a couple of moments ago, all season has been behind Sutton.
Yep.
And as soon as Sutton got past Collard, I'm amazed Collard didn't just pull off to the left and let Ingram straight through afterwards.
Agreed.
Yeah.
That was whilst Rainford came into the pits for his damage. And then we had a little bit of action at the back of the field. This was between Josh Cook and Lewis Gilbert.
Which was sad for you, because one of your predictions this weekend was that we'd have Bensley, Househead or Gilbert score a point. And at this point, he was scoring a point, was Gilbert.
Gilbert was running 15th at this point, and he was looking to defend the position going down into the hairpin. Possibly left it a little bit later to move over, but Cook was definitely nowhere near alongside, maybe a couple of inches of bumper alongside, but he was unceremoniously pushed onto the grass, which he didn't take too kindly to.
I think Gilbert squeezes him onto the grass, personally. I think he does.
However, the actions on the next lap were far from correct.
That I would agree with. Yeah, that I would agree with.
Going into the right-hander, I think it's turn 7. Cook looks to get the cut back underneath and just drives straight into the back of him, really. Spins him round, puts him straight in the gravel.
Yeah, it wasn't a good look. And we're recording this straight after race 1. I'd be stunned if we're not starting race 2 if Cook starts further down the grid due to a penalty, because to me it's slam dunk. The Gilbert one isn't a penalty. I think he does squeeze him onto the grass, but I think Cook's got the time and control to not be put onto the grass. On this one, you're right. It looks like he just drives into the back of him and puts him off. So yeah, I agree with you.
Very disappointed.
I wasn't.
As a result of that, Gilbert was stuck in the gravel. A safety car was called, and then we saw everyone sort of like cooling their tyres, looking for the wet patches, because there was some sort of drying.
Yeah, it was drying. Yeah,
but certainly not enough for anyone to move on to those dry tyres. Then at the restart, it did feel a little bit like Robot and went, Morgan, you go.
Yeah.
I'll be your defence.
I agree, but I also think Morgan's just had this weekend absolutely nailed so far. He got the pole yesterday. He got the sprint to pole with a lot of ease.
Yep. And
to be fair, prior to the safety car here, he built a massive gap. I just think he's been on it this weekend, and I don't think Robot could as time recording, I don't think Robot will be able to live with him. It'll be interesting to see what happens in the next race, because they'll be on, unless it's raining, they'll be on the worst tyre.
Yep. Robot sort of like left him to it, bit of a backwards defensive, but then sort of like a lap later, Robot had already grown that gap to Shedden. Both drivers looked fairly comfortable out front, and they were there to take home that 1-2 with ease. However, on the restart, Rainford's day got a little bit worse. He spun turn 7. It looked like he might have had a little bit of help, possibly from Smiley. Inconclusive from the replays, but that would send him to the back of the field once again. And the only other bit of action that I've got here is De Leon got shuffled back.
Yes, he did.
All 3 Audis came past him. It looks like Doble ran him a little bit wide.
Yeah, I think that's an understatement. Yeah.
In turn 3, I think, which put him out onto the gravel, and the rest of the Audis came past him.
I think Doble might be in trouble with that one.
You reckon?
I really do, yeah. The Clarks don't like that kind of move anymore.
No.
So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw that get dealt with post-race.
Okay, fair enough. But yeah, as I said, a 1-2 for Plato Racing. Their first win of the season, their first 1-2 ever.
History.
Very much history, and it looks as if now, because even going into this race with the wet conditions, they were a little bit cautious as to their expectations because they didn't know how the car was going to react. But it looks like they might have found a sweet spot.
Yeah, they've got new dampeners on this weekend, a few other little upgrades that they've managed to bring. We did point out at Thoroxton that they were looking better than they had for the whole of the season.
Although a little twitchy.
Yeah. I do think rain is always the great leveler. I would be definitely interested. I mean, if race 2 is dry and they're on the worst tyre, I do fear for them. This might age terribly. We might have to edit this out. But yeah, I think now they've got to use this as a bit of a progress, as sort of a baseline to build from. But a very, very encouraging start to the day for them.
Yeah, the final standings for race 1 then. So Morgan wins from Rowbottom, from Shedden, from Sutton.
Yep, fourth. Ingram, Collard, Dexter Patterson, the Jack Sears winner and best performing Audi of the day, of the race, sorry. Mikey Doble, Aidan Moffat. That's a great recovery from Moffat, back in the grid. And let's not forget that on the green flag laps, the car wasn't starting. So
it looked like he really struggled to get started. I don't know whether he was trying to start in first or second. It looked like on the dashboard he had second, but wasn't getting the pickup that he needed.
Yeah.
But yeah, great recovery from him, and certainly better than yesterday.
Absolutely. And I think he'll have an eye on a podium from here, for sure. Sam... Well, you've already won that point, so it doesn't matter.
But I need an Audi on the podium.
Sam Osborne, 10th, good return from him. And then we had Darryl Daly on 11th, bit of a poor result in the end, given we backed the BMWs quite well this weekend. Aaron Taylor-Smith in 12th. Josh Cook recovered to 13th, although I think
whether he keeps that.
Yeah, we'll see. Lewis Selby in the points, along with James Dorl in 15th. Chris Miley tumbled all the way down to 16th in the end. Tom Chilton did fairly well to recover himself to 17th. Camish after his penalty in 18th. Bensley in 19th and Nick Halstead 20th. Nick Hamilton also had to pit with grass in the radio. We didn't cover that off in the...
I didn't even see a replay of it.
No, but he did.
He went off somewhere. Yes. And had to have that cleaned out. But
yeah. Right then, race 2. On to race 2 then, a much more dry affair, and we were incorrect in race 1. There was no penalty for Josh Cook. Some suggestions on Twitter suggesting that Gilbert had moved in the braking zone several times prior to the incident, which we didn't see on ITV camera. So
yes,
Chris Smiley was penalised for his move on Rainford, and Rainford remonstrated him in the pit lane. An interesting excuse offered by Smiley of he couldn't see out the windscreen, which seems a fairly important component for going racing, but what do I know?
Yeah, once you introduce a little bit of dampness into these cars, you can get quite an amount of condensation on the inside, so it'd be interesting to see, but it doesn't look like he's a camera car this weekend, so we can't give much opinion on that.
No, so dry race, which meant tyre considerations were in play. Obviously, the top 3 all had to start on the medium tyre, and we did see Cook, Chilton, Bensley and Hamilton also opt for that medium tyre.
I do find it unusual that some drivers went for a medium tyre with what the climate is doing at the moment in Scotland. Surely you'd try and run the softest tyres when you can, with the hope of there being possibly more rain.
Potentially so. We also saw quite an odd directive, not one I've seen for a long time, where all of the cars on the outside of what would become turn 1, so outside of the grid, were able to start out of position, i.e. a couple of metres over in their pit box to avoid them being on the damp part of the line. The rest of the track was wet, dry, apart from this fairly small wet patch down the pit straight. Approved by Mr. Gow himself. I've seen it occasionally for 1 or 2 cars if it's been oiled down that they can start slightly out of position. I've not seen it that I can remember for the whole grid before, or half a grid before.
I find it really strange that it's because it's consistent down that half a grid. For me, that's how the cookie crumbles, and it was like almost halfway.
Tom Ingram.
It was like almost halfway down the actual grid box as well. So you'd have one set of tire, or one side with your tyres on the wet patch and one side with your tyres on the dry.
The flip argument to that is that you're then going into a series of very tight, twisty corners where half your car is potentially going to be cold and damp because of the start, where you need heat in your tyres. We've seen what happens if you drop stuff on cold tyres. You could also potentially then have cars sort of getting stuck, bogged down in the wet part of the grid, and therefore maybe even sliding across because of the way the car was snapped when half of it's. So I get it. I think that Ingram on the grid whinging about it just sums up where Ingram is this season. Everything's a whinge.
Didn't whinge.
He did whinge.
He just expressed his surprise at it.
He said in a very loaded, sarky way, "That's interesting." Which, had he been on that side of the grid, he'd have been very happy for it. I just think that, race drivers like to moan, don't they?
Especially when they're not winning.
Yeah, and obviously Ingram also revealed on his pit start or his grid interview. That's the word I'm looking for. Grid interview that he had some engine gremlins in race 1. Who didn't know about the engine gremlins he was about to get in race 2, but they was doing some final checks on the grid, and he did actually have that problem off the line again with a lack of power. So it's not
like turbo issues.
Yeah, and it's not been the first time that Hyundai have had a few engine issues this season either. In the race itself, Sutton got off the grid well in his outrageously different grid position, interesting grid position, and was into third. Robot around the outside and a brave move into the lead. He did reveal afterwards that him and Morgan had kind of got a gentleman's agreement in place that whoever was first into turn 1 would have the corner and be allowed to keep it.
He made sure he was first into turn 1.
He did, and a very good ballsy move around the outside on that would be where the damper part is, because as soon as you get onto the curbs, they're still the dampest part of the racetrack. So did well there. Moffat then went off, looked like he'd lost it on his own onto the grass, and I've never seen this before. He hit a bump so hard he ripped the front end of the car off.
It's fair to say that the grass at Knockhill is maybe not the smoothest grass and the most well-laid lawn. He ripped the whole front diffuser or under tray, that wooden plank that is underneath the front bumper, off of the car with so much force that it actually pushed the bonnet up.
Yeah, I've never seen that before. No. Incredible. His bad luck continues. Obviously, he had a really good race 1, as we discussed.
Yep.
I think I said to you before the race, he'd have an eye on the podium in race 2 with that softer tyre as well.
Why do you speak?
Well, that went well for him. Then we saw a really, again, in a race of things I've never really seen before. Ingram went into the back of the shed and at about 12 miles an hour, a really slow part of the circuit, a fairly innocuous touch, a sort of touch we see all the time, and bent the front end of his car out of all recognition. I've never seen that before.
Coming up into the blind chicane, opening lap, there is always going to be a little bit of bunching, so I don't know whether he could have been a little bit more cautious. But as you say, the actual contact front to rear on Shedden's car, it looked really innocuous from, I think it was Collard's on board.
Yeah.
And caused a hell of a lot of damage. And the only thing that I can think that has caused that difference is the angle of approach. And it's pushed everything upwards, pushed the bonnet up as well, caused radiator leak as well, and just that was his race done and dusted.
Yeah, it's possible as well. He's just caught the strongest part of that. Obviously, these cars are built to withstand an enormous amount of crash force, front, back, and side, because we've seen in touring cars that any panel you have on a touring car can get hit. Yeah, exactly. Can get hit in a big way.
Yeah.
So it might have used you today. He's hit the hardest part of the car at a weird angle, which has caused that level of damage. But when they came back to the pit and they popped the bonnet, you could see the damage to the inlet pipe. And I've seen accidents like that in touring cars, but I've never seen first lap bunching, which is all it was, cause that level of damage. Ingram then had to retire, and to be honest with you, that pretty much has marked the championship over in my. It was over anyway, but it certainly is in my eyes now. But yeah, very odd incident. Rowbottom would take the restart in a very controlled manner, as you'd expect. Sutton wasted no time sliding into second at the bottom of Duffer's dip. Typical Sutton move on better tyres, simple as that. Morgan left the door a little bit open, perhaps caught a little bit napping, but
you always kind of felt that Sutton was going to try and make that optimistic move, and he just had more grip later on the brakes, was able to get the car turned in tighter as well. Just everything about the car at that point was reacting a lot better than Morgan's.
House said needed to make sure he had a moment for the cameras for his sponsors. We've not seen a lot of him this weekend, so decided to drop it. Looks like presumably by himself, although I haven't seen the replay, so we don't know for sure.
My assumption with the wheel tracks going through the gravel is he may have got it wrong coming through the chicane up on 2 wheels or something, slid wide into the gravel, picked up a load of grass, spun round on the track, bit of reversing, getting all sides of the car.
Yep.
For all his sponsors.
Yeah. We then seen Cook's weekend just unravel even further by being sent sideways by Selby. We only really saw the onboard of this. We didn't actually see the outside view. It looked as if it was just corner bunching from what we saw on the onboard, but keep an eye on that in the penalty room afterwards. Sutton was then able to get into the lead of a late break move at the hairpin, use the boost on the run down to the last turn, and then because of having the softer tyre, was able to brake a lot later than Rowbottom on the inside line as well, and was able to get the traction out of the corner into the lead.
Rowbottom was fairly resigned to the fact of Sutton being on that softer tyre. I don't think he overly fought it. He made it difficult for him, don't get me wrong, but he knew that eventuality was coming, and he was then grateful for all the defensive work that Shedden was doing.
I was about to say, back. Rowbottom and Morgan didn't tumble as perhaps you might have thought, but we've seen this before this season, that if the third place car is able to hold on, which is obviously the first of the harder tyres for the rest of the pack, if they're able to hold on, it does really help the first and second from race one hold position. And Shedden was able to hold on. Dex was giving him a really good run for his money, but Shedden just knows where to put the car.
I think it's quite significant at Knockhill as well because of how tight the circuit is. Obviously, Shedden
how quick the lap is as well.
Yeah, Shedden knows the circuit really well. He knows how to position the car. His wealth of experience really helped him with that as well. And it was only once sort of like Dobell made his way past Patterson that then Rainford came past and then really put the pressure on and had that difference in speed to actually get past Shedden.
Yeah, absolutely. We then saw Rainford making really good progress. He was up to 9th by lap number 16. Obviously, really he started on the back of the grid on the softer tyre, but was actually showing why we backed the BMW this weekend with some really good moves as well. I think either Paul O'Neill or Tim Harvey said in commentary or comment that there was no sort of skullduggery or aggressive moves from Rainford. These were just really well...
Just out driving people.
Yeah, really well timed, really well judged, and exactly what I expected the BMW to do this weekend. Sam then had a moment where he became very sad indeed because Gilbert, who was running in the points at this point or 1 point out.
He was very close to it, and then a few little shuffles could have happened and he could have been in the points.
A shuffle did happen.
Shuffle into the gravel, yeah.
Yeah. And had to pit, which left you very sad.
Yes.
Dobell was then into 5th, passing Shedden with some good hard racing, fair bit of hip and shoulder from both on this one through the hairpin and then down to the drag into turn 1. But that's what touring car racing is all about for me. It was the right side of fair, and you expect to see a few door handles going into each other. De Leon would then spin off with some contact from Camish. Racing incident for me. 2 into 1 doesn't go. It's a really weird corner that you come in at such speed and you lean so much that if you go up in 2x2, the one on the outside just gets washed into the gravel. It's just the way the corner works here. For me, no foul, just a racing incident.
Yeah, it's a shame because obviously the speed that Rainford had, there is potential in that car this weekend. De Leon just hasn't really been able to find it. And ended up in the barrier. Although he did manage to recover, he managed to reverse out of the gravel because it was still so damp without a safety car being deployed.
You mentioned Rainford's progress, and he continued to do well by getting past Shedden. At the same time, Card was able to slip into 3rd with a good move on Morgan. The lights being blaring, obviously finally paying off. I don't know if that makes any difference whatsoever, by the way. I know you said it's quite normal for GT racing. There's more cars to pass on the circuit because of the different classes and stuff, but I
think it's just a habit that he's got into from that. And as he said before, if it makes 1 ounce of difference and he can get 1 position from it, then it's worth doing.
Yeah, maybe. We then saw Dobell get past Morgan with a good move by him. And then we had Smiley off into the gravel of a suspension failure. Now, I don't know if he did this with the contact with Camish. You think so? Yeah.
He had a questionable move into the hairpin on Camish.
Robust.
Where there was a decent amount of contact on his front left-hand corner. And then as soon as he hit the brakes going down into turn 1, you saw a plume of smoke and almost what looked like the front suspension fail, wheel up into the arch, and him just go straight on. Luckily, he didn't hit the barrier, but he did end up beached in the gravel, which would cause a safety car.
Yep, and that safety car took us very close to the end of the race. They did manage to recover it just about to give us one final lap shootout. However, Nick Hamilton his car became stricken on the run up to the line, which meant that the final part of the lap was under yellow flags, which didn't help any overtaking. We didn't actually see any moves on the last lap, which is a little bit disappointing. But I think a last lap shootout somewhere so short like Knockhill is never really going to give you. You need a couple of laps to set a move up at Knockhill, unless an opportunity really does arise. So all of this meant that Sutton won, I think, his 7th of the season, his 54th overall. His 5th championship. It's difficult. You don't want to be defeatist. You don't want to be down on it. But it's so hard to see how anything else can happen from here. Certain won the race from Rowbottom. That's a really good performance by Rowbottom. Drove really well,
especially on that alternate tyre.
Exactly. And I think he owes a couple of pints to Shedden and Morgan for making his life as easy as possible. And Collard, who is, in case you haven't noticed, doing it by race basis at the moment, was able to finish third. I just don't see that win coming through him. I really don't.
It's going to be difficult, especially with the quality of drivers that we've got this season. Mikey Doble was in fourth from Adam Morgan in fifth. Didn't drop too far. Kind of surrendered a few positions at the end, but just as those tyres were falling away. Rainford in sixth, a brilliant drive all the way from the back of the grid. From Shedden in seventh, Patterson eighth, Camish ninth, Osborne again 10th. From Selby in 11th, Chilton 12th, Taylor Smith 13th, Dorlin 14th, and Josh Cook 15th.
Sutton would then pull ball number 12, which means that Tom Chilton will start on pole position with 3 nappers behind him. That could be quite interesting. And Rainford will be looking racy from the sort of mid-pack in that last race as well. From my predictions point of view, I only need one more Scott on the podium, on any form of podium in race 3 for me to get that point. So
that is true.
Fingers crossed. Patterson's having a bumper weekend so far.
Yeah, if he could get onto the podium, that would be lovely because that'd sort me out as well.
I actually, as well, I mean, we didn't really mention it in that review. I thought Patterson raced really well. He just couldn't quite get past Shedden. I think they were right to allow Doble to attack Patterson to then be in a position to try and get past Shedden himself. But yeah, I thought Patterson's having a really strong weekend, and it's good to see the Audi looking a bit more competitive this weekend.
Yeah, we'll move on to race 3 next.
So moving on to race number 3, we've brought in with us our number 1 fan because it's got incredibly hot and sticky, because apparently the British summertime is now going to be like this forevermore.
You're not a fan of the heat, are you?
No. You can become our number 1 fan by liking, subscribing, sharing, getting involved in the conversation. We've had a load of stuff on Facebook today around the Jason Plato success in race number 1, which has popped off in a nice fashion for us. So
still plenty of Plato fans out there, unsurprisingly.
Yeah, absolutely. So make sure you've got the bell on, make sure you've subscribed, make sure you've liked our social media, and you could be our number 1 fan.
We'll bring you all the action from race 3 then.
Before we do
that, we have a couple of penalties to clear up from the end of race 2.
Yes, I'm going to mention the Rainford one as well.
Okay.
Because it's quite funny. We both noted that in race 1, he was quite unhappy about having to come to the pit lane and the way he acted in the pit lane. And he did get a verbal reprimand for this, and I quote,
leaving it sharpishly.
Yes.
And parking badly, I think it basically says.
Car 99 was not correctly angle parked or pushed back from a pit stop and spun the wheels when leaving the pits. So he got himself a little warning for that. And Camish also got himself a warning for the incident with Josh Cook that we discussed in race number 2. Not a surprise there, particularly.
Race 3 then. Again, dry, clear skies, drying track. You had to be on a soft tyre, really.
You did, and to be fair, very few runners were on the soft tyre. Obviously, most had run it in race number 2, perhaps with an eye on the sky, thinking that if it rained in race number 3, they could get away with having to run a wet tyre then and not have to use the medium. So we saw Chilton on pole, starting on the soft, Rowbottom, Morgan, Bensley, Hamilton, and Housestead, I think, were the ones. Have I missed anybody there? Shedden, well, as we'll find out, his tyre was too soft.
So yes, Chilton being on pole was in that prime position to take advantage.
Not according to John Clennon.
No, certainly not. That was an interesting interview on the grid, wasn't it?
Well, it was less interesting than the fact that Chilton still obviously has nightmares about Charles Rainford. I mean, it was how long ago? Let it go, mate.
Ingram's team had done some stellar work and managed to change the engine actually before the end of race 2. I think he said that they'd had the engine out by the end of lap 7, and then it was all back in.
Or 7 laps to go, I think it might have been. But
dusted by the end of race 2. So he'd be ready for race 3 with hopefully all of his issues out of the window. One thing before the race started, Morgan, from my point of view, looked slightly out of position, almost like where they started race 2 from on that left-hand side of the grid.
It wasn't mentioned, so I'm wondering if it's just a quirk of the angles, because it is downhill.
Or
where
whether
Morgan
there was something on the grid slot.
Yeah, I'm surprised. If there was, though, I'd have thought it'd been picked up, given,
Agreed.
But I think it might have just been the angle of the camera angle, to be honest with you.
It was a fairly even start, as you'd expect. Chilton got off the line well, being on that softer tyre, and it would be Shedden that came across the first major issue. Not sure whether it involved any contact or whether it was just an unfortunate piece of debris.
I think it was the wrong side of the wheel that went was the wrong side for it to be contact. Personally, for that section, I think that it was a soft tyre, and we know that obviously it's been raining, so that would have brought all the the impurities of the tarmac to the surface throughout the day. Might have just got a little nick on the curb early on and just torn the tyre wall.
It came as a shock to him. It looked like it went down rather quickly. A puncture on his left rear sent him spinning coming out of the chicane, and once again further down the lap. There were thoughts at the time whether it might have been a broken toe link following some contact, but it was confirmed as a puncture. Moffat had a really quite good start. He was up 7 places on the opening lap, and he said on the way to the grid that his starts haven't been the best, but he did try to make up for it afterwards. That didn't last too long.
I did like the fact he was able to have a bit of a laugh and a joke that he's heard this rumour that starting the second gear is quite good, tried it, couldn't do it. So it looked like a numpty. So fair play.
On lap 3, Gilbert's weekend got worse and he had yet another spin. I think completely uncontested, all on his own. But it really wasn't a great weekend in the end for him.
It was a shame.
What looked so promising.
I was going to say it was a shame because in race 1 I did say to you that actually he was running a lot better than he did at Thruxton. He was not too far off the pace. He was in a pack, and then through contact, through inexperience, I have to say, talking about the start, I was impressed with how well Selby got off the line and held his own for the opening couple of laps. I know obviously he'd tumble down the order, and that's to a degree expected, but he held on for a long time on the wrong tyre as well. Yeah,
so him, Osborne and Camish all on the wrong tyre, quote. But I think the main reason that Selby was able to stay there, and it became evident later in the race, is because he used his boost to keep himself in that position. He did gradually fall through the field later on. Rowbottom and Sutton were having a decent battle on lap 4, chopping and changing positions. Obviously, Rowbottom was on the softer tyre at this point and was trying to make headway, while Sutton was on that medium, just trying to hold his own, basically. I thought it was a nice battle between them, old teammates. There could have been some issues there, but there weren't.
No, I think this is a really tough one for Sutton. Obviously, starting in 12 on the wrong tyre, minimal boost because he won race 2.
Yep.
I think we've spoken this podcast before and probably a million times that the boost and the tyre offset really is difficult.
Can be.
And particularly if you started down in 12, Sutton were known coming into this race that getting a points finish would be a result. And it sounds defeatist, but it really would have been a result given that he would have had cars on softs around him. And it's race 3, and in the pack in race 3, cars that want to get forward will do it by more aggressive means than they might in race 1 or 2. Yeah, exactly.
One driver who wasn't having a brilliant race was Osborne. He managed to go off after a scrap, shall I say.
Well, self-inflicted.
The Duffers.
Yeah, I mean, the two of them were racing fairly well side by side, and they just tried to go for a move that was never on. I mean, the angle he tried to throw himself up the inside, it looked a little desperate, if I'm being brutally honest.
It felt out of control as well. He had one wheel on the grass. He wasn't realistically going to get stopped in time. Goes flying down the side of Patterson, across the front of him and off into the gravel, which actually caused Patterson to then lose a position to Morgan as well, who he'd only just held off into turn 1.
I think Morgan would have had him anyway on the soft tyre. But I mean, to quote Martin Brundle, it was a day late and $1 short, wasn't it? And
few dollars short.
I think this is the biggest frustration with Osborne, is that every time you think he's turned a corner, this sort of thing comes out. And I just think it was just unnecessary. You're in a good position, you've got a good number of boosts, you're in a good car. You don't need to be doing it. It's early in the race. There's a lot of laps to go. You don't need to be making those moves so early.
As I said, Morgan was the beneficiary of that, and he then went on to go past both Camish and Selby within a lap of each other. And you were saying at this point that he could really go on and possibly challenge Chilton for the win.
Well, Chilton was away at the front, but he wasn't massively away. No. And Morgan looked the quicker. That, in fairness to Chilton, he clearly had some in reserve because as soon as Morgan was in second, Chilton started up the ante and managed the race really well, to be fair to him.
Then Patterson managed to get his own back, got past Selby for 4th, and Rainford soon followed him through, and this was kind of the start of Selby's downfall. He started to get shuffled back through the pack, really struggling, obviously used up all of his boost as well, and I think he'd probably used up the best of his tyres trying to defend almost too much, rather than just settling into a position where his speed probably would have accounted for.
I think it's a shame, because I think had he started this race on softs, and it's all ifs, buts and maybes, if Yarnsey had whatnot, but I think he could. I don't think it's beyond the realms of possibility to suggest podium, and at the very least a top 6 finish, because the pace in the early part of the race was really good.
Yeah, it was. And then Sutton. Sutton randomly, and I don't think there are any replays of this, forgive me if I missed this while writing notes, just dropped 4 positions.
Yeah. He was in a battle pack, so there was no replay while you're writing notes. There wasn't, but he was in a battle pack with Ingram, Collard, Doble. They're all sort of, I'd say they were quite aggressive, the 4 of them together, and I think it was a case of a few barge attempts. I mean, Sutton got...
But at this point, he was comfortably ahead of Ingram and didn't really need to push any.
No, but he'd been a little bit aggressive with Moffat and Doble in the laps previously. I just wonder, we didn't catch it on the cameras, I just wonder if they got a bit aggressive back, basically. I mean, we saw him and Moffat banging door handles coming out of the hairpin a few laps later with a shower of debris. I just think that, I mean, Ingram has to be aggressive now. He has to be.
Yeah.
Well, I say he has to be. It's done. We'll bring in the gap at the end of the pod, but it's done. But
yeah, as you say, Moffat then got past Sutton a couple of laps later. He seemed to be bleeding positions, and he was very much at risk of actually dropping out of the points at this point.
Agreed.
It was only when Selby started dropping back and a couple of other drivers started going off the boil a little that he was able to stabilise just in the bottom end of those points.
I wonder if he thought he might have had damage to the car, so backed off for a lap or two, wanted to cool the car down, because of course these cars running close to each other does send the temperatures through the roof. Or maybe he just felt, you know what, I'll let these 3 or 4, take 7 shades out of each other, and I'll see what I can pick up.
At this point, Chilton was fairly comfortable out front, around about a second and a half gap to Morgan, was able to balance that quite nicely. Collard then had a final warning for track limits on lap 19. We know what track limits can be like nowadays. People do have to be really careful with them. But I must say, I think that was the only track limit warning during the racing this weekend that I'd seen.
Smiley got one in race when he was sent across the gravel in race 2, which is bizarre.
I know.
Is this the point to talk about Ingram being angry at Collard, or am I jumping ahead a little bit too much?
No, you can be angry.
So I'm not angry. I don't care less. But Ingram was behind Collard for a long time. Collard did not let him through, and in the end, Mikey Doble was actually able to get past Ingram whilst Collard was holding him up, basically, and Ingram flashing the lights. I was very surprised that Collard didn't move over at any, and actually even at the end of the race, he didn't let Ingram by for 9th. And you might say, well, 9th, yeah, but Sutton is down in the bottom end of the points.
Every point matters.
Yeah. And I'm astonished there's nobody on the blower. I know that we saw this last year where Ingram said, I'm not taking wins off people, I'm not taking podiums off people, etc. But this wasn't like that. And I think that if there wasn't a call, that is why Napa are the ruthless team that have won so much since they came to the sport, because they are ruthless.
Yeah.
If Selby could have been 3rd today.
Makes a change for a teammate of Tingram's to be actually up there ahead of him as well.
There is that.
But yeah.
But Selby could have been running 3rd today, and if something was behind, Napa would have told him to give up the position. Yes. 100% guarantee it.
Definitely. No, this was at the point where Moffat had his lock-up going off into the gravel at turn 3. Sutton went, I'm here, and he went, oh no, I better get out of the way, and really did. Yeah, I
think it was a classic case of looking too much behind and not enough forward, and then missing your breaking point, locking up and going into the gravel, which is a real shame because he'd...
Real clumsy mistake.
It was exactly that, but he'd recovered so well in race 2. He'd done really well in this race, and it just feels this is Moffat's season at the minute.
Yeah, he said it on his sort of like drive to the grid as well, that he's had the speed this weekend. I think it's been quite evident.
Yeah, I wouldn't argue that at all.
He just hasn't had the luck that goes with it.
He's going home tonight knowing he's left a podium on that out there. 100%.
Yeah, agreed. And then Chilton took the win with ease from Morgan. The end of the race for me petered out quite a lot. Not a classic race 3. Yes, there were lots of argy-bargy bits in the midfield and stuff like that.
So it was a classic. I think that was one of the more classics. Really? Yeah, I thought there was a lot happening. I thought we saw a lot of incidents.
We saw a lot of people going up and down throughout the field. 2 drivers that we haven't even mentioned are Rainford and De Leon here. De Leon went really quietly up through the field in this race, made up, 10, 11, 12 places. Managed to finish in the top 6 along with Rainford. Really pulling back a weekend of possibly what could have been for BMW as well.
Agreed. Yeah, I mean, in the end, Sutton did finish in the points, but only just. And we saw Aaron Taylor-Smith coming together with... Who did he come together with this race?
It doesn't matter. He was useless this weekend.
Okay. Well.
Honestly, if you'd have told me he wasn't here this weekend, I'd have gone, no, I didn't see him.
No.
Really lacklustre comparison to Shedden.
Hamilton was running well this race.
He was.
And actually
just
was
missed out on
points as well. Yeah, which is a shame for him, but he did really well this race, I have to say, and particularly after the disappointing end to race 2 as well. Okie dokie. So if I go through the running order then, so Tom Chilton finished, I think that's his first win of the year. From Adam Morgan, second podium for him this weekend. What a job he's done for Plato Racing.
Weekend for
Dan Camish, I mean, if I'm Ingram, I'm now looking backwards than I'm looking forwards because Camish is closing that gap.
Oh, yeah.
And a decent weekend for Camish as well. Albeit not quite gone on to get that race win, but and then Dexter Patterson fourth. What a weekend he's had, by the way!
Brilliant weekend, and these are the kind of results. Yes, okay, it was his home race, and he had plenty of people there supporting him as well, which is always great to see. But these need to be the platform races where he then bounces on to even better results throughout the rest of the season.
But we've seen before this season, he's beaten both Moffat and Doble. It's not the first time he's outscored them or outfinished them. I mean, if I dare go back a couple of years, there was a real racer in there. And I think it is weekends that you really see that. He held off Rainford brilliantly in this race. And we saw how well Rainford does round here and did in race 2 at getting past people. And he never really had a sniff this race. Dexter just controlled it really, really well. Rainford finished in 5th. A good recovery for Rainford in the end. Much to the chagrin, I'm sure, of Tom Chilton. Daryl Leon finishing 6th, Yuso recovering a little bit from, again, what could have been for BMW. Rowbottom slightly disappointed, dare I say, on the soft tire to only finish 7th.
He ran out of boost quite early on, which I don't think helped him. And those drivers that are ahead of him got away early on. So he struggled to pull that back. But then Cook followed up behind him with a charge through the field. Good
recovery drive from Cook, who'd had up to this point a very, very poor weekend. I don't think this makes up for what has been a difficult weekend for him, but it certainly gives him something to go home and be happier about than would have been.
He can be happy.
Ricky Collard into he's got a more brighter hair, maybe a brighter outlook now. Ricky Collard in 9th. I'm stunned he didn't let Ingram through on the line. I cannot believe that, given that last year Napa tried to let Sutton through on yellow flags. Crazy. Lewis. So, I've jumped far too far ahead. Mikey Doble finished 11th. Ash Sutton 12th. That's the first time he's finished outside the top 10 all season, I believe. Then we had Lewis Selby in the end 13th, who, interestingly, wasn't allowed to finish in front of Sutton. Just compare that to Virtue.
Slower anyway, but go on.
Smiley in 14th and James Dorling rounding out the points in 15th position. Shedden and Moffat were classified, albeit both a lap down. And Shedden got the fastest lap, I think.
Putting that other soft tyre on, he had nothing to lose.
Oh, that's interesting.
He went for it.
What is interesting, I didn't know that TSL did this. They give you an independent. They give you the fastest lap for both an independent and a manufacturer.
Oh, okay.
So Morgan had the quickest manufacturer.
Okay, fair enough.
Lap, but was 5 tenths down on Shedden, which is a lot.
I think Shedden was a little bit angry at that.
Well, also clear air as well.
Yes, as well. Yes.
And probably you wouldn't just change one tyre, would you? You'd probably change all 4, wouldn't you?
No, I think they did only change one.
Okay, fair enough. I don't know much about that sort of thing. Right, shall we therefore? We're recording this straight after race 3, so we aren't sure of any penalties. I don't think there's going to be any to come from race 3. If there are, we'll bring it up to date on our Facebook. So even more reason to be on our Facebook page, because we will post that tomorrow if there is any penalties from race 3 to discuss.
We'll get on to our awards for the weekend first, and then we'll finish off with our predictions and how they went. There's a few new drivers on here this weekend.
There are.
Not a Sutton or Ingram in sight,
which makes
does
change.
Make a change.
Yep.
I've gone for Adam Morgan this weekend. This is quite comfortably the best weekend that he's had in a touring car, probably for a couple of years, I would say.
I would agree. So I'm trying to get points up for later on. Yes, I would agree. Yeah, look, I would have gone for Morgan. I've gone something different for a point of difference. But what a weekend for Adam Morgan. A pole, a race to pole win, a win, and a podium.
It's like almost a perfect weekend for him.
Agreed. It's the sort. Sorry to cut across again. It's a sort of weekend we've been praising Sutton for all season.
Yeah. And he's outshone Rowbottom this weekend for me as well.
This season, but
he's driver of the day for me.
Yeah, look, I would absolutely go for Morgan. I've gone for something different, so we've got a little bit more to talk about. I've gone for Dexter Patterson. His results this weekend. He's won the Jack. Look, I know that when you talk to these drivers, you say, "Oh, you must be looking at the Jack Sears." They always go, "Yeah, but I'm also looking at the outright," and I get that. But also, the very minimum is to succeed in the Jack Sears, and he's taken all 3 wins with ease.
Well, the other thing to look at is independence for Patterson as well. So just on his own this weekend in the independence, he scored 50 points. Now, if you include that with the other teams, he is effectively a single-man team with that awesome S3 Audi. And overall, he's finished 4th across the weekend. He's beaten both the Restart boys added together.
Yeah, no, exactly that. He's had a phenomenal weekend. I'm just trying to get up his final standings for the weekend, just very quickly.
I'll add in here that he is my surprise good for the weekend. I thought Audi would do okay this weekend. Yes, it's his home circuit, but I really didn't see him putting in the performances that he has. So they've been just that little bit above and beyond what I thought would happen.
Yeah, so he's had a 7th, an 8th, and a 4th this weekend. That's really good, strong running for an independent team and a driver who's, okay, he's not quite a rookie, but he's not equally with the more experienced, and he didn't put a foot wrong all weekend either. Really impressive performance.
My villain of the weekend, as some of you may have guessed already, is
just because Gilbert didn't get points.
Josh Cook.
Ladies and gentlemen, the defence for Lewis Gilby here.
it leads on from that incident on Saturday. Now, okay, there may have been a very small touch from a teammate.
So it sounds.
Still ended off in the gravel. Started from the back from race 1. Really didn't do much. Got into incidents. The only retaining factor is his performance in race 3, and he was on the opposite tyre.
I will say that whilst if there was contact in the race to pole,
it's minimal.
Then it has to be minimum on that one.
I know.
That negates that somewhat. However, what I was going to say in defence of your call is that if nothing else, and we don't know all the details, what he got up to with Gilbert this weekend was very, very sloppy.
Amateurish.
It didn't look great, shall we say.
And coming off the back of the weekend of Thruxton, where he drove so well and elevated himself within the championship, that's not how you follow it up.
No, I agree with that. I don't necessarily think all of it was in his control, but I can understand your frustrations.
Your villain, mate.
I've gone for Moffat. Now, the reason being...
Ooh.
Well, look.
The pace he's had this weekend.
Yeah, but
I think he's been unfortunate.
Okay, he's had pace. What's he done with it? In race 1, he drops it on his own. And okay, he's unlucky that the car reacts the way it does. I accept that entirely, but don't drop it in the first place. You don't have that problem.
Some drivers have run across there all weekend and had no issue.
But don't.
I know.
Yeah, Morgan won a race.
Difficult conditions.
Okay, Morgan won a race because he didn't go across that type of grass and didn't leave it to chance. Yeah. And okay, as I said in the race 1 bit, I've never seen a car react that way before. No. He's unlucky, but it's still a mistake.
Okay.
Whatever you do, it is still a mistake. Race 2, good performance, no questions about that. Race 3, unforced error in a good position. Okay, he wasn't in a podium position. Okay, he wasn't going to win the race. He was still scoring good points. He still recovered a weekend really quite well after a disappointing Saturday again.
Yeah.
And
doesn't like Saturdays more.
I just felt today that every time it looked like he got it in the window and turned the corner, mistake happened. And I don't think this weekend you go, well, he got punted off, or at Thruxton, a stone goes through the radiator in race 3 and ends his race. That's unlucky. That is not driver error. That can happen to anybody. Yep. This is driver error for me, and that's why I'm putting that. And the reason it's villain is because it's errors from good positions. You do this at the back, right? You do this, all respect, you do this as your house is at the back. It doesn't put you in villain because it's expected. Putting it bluntly, you're not holding him to the same standard.
Yeah.
These are the sort of mistakes I'd expect from a driver not as experienced, long in the tooth as Moffat is in this sport. I'm sorry.
Okay. I've done my surprise good, so your surprise good, please.
My surprise good was Plato Racing. A little bit of a cop-out, but we did say in the preview that I wasn't expecting Mercedes to go particularly well here.
Neither of us were.
Thank you, Jeff, for just pointing that out to us. Yep, we'll take that one on the chin. But
I appreciate all the comments.
Yeah,
if you want to make more, do that down below, please.
We'll take that on the chin, absolutely. We got that one wrong. I will say that I don't think even the most ardent Mercedes fan would have expected the results they've had this weekend.
I'm not sure even Jason.
I was about to say, I don't think Plato expected them the way they were this weekend from some of the interviews he gave. But look, they've changed a few things on the car. They've got taken home 3 podiums. They've taken home effectively 2 race wins if you count the race to pole thing. Yep. They've taken home a pole. Look, this is a phenomenal weekend by Plato Racing. And this now has to be, as I said in race 1, this now has to be the benchmark, the base level, the foundation to really push on in the second half of the season.
Yep.
But I do think as well, just on that, they've now got the monkey off their back. They've got that win because the longer it goes, it's more a player going to get a win. When they're going to get a win, when they're going to take a win. They've now done that.
Do you think if at the next round now they underperform, say right down outside the top 10, will we go, was it just a flash in the pan?
I don't think we will, but I think a lot of people will.
Okay.
I think Croft, which is where we're going to next, is an opposite in every way to Knockhill. It's Croft next, isn't it?
Donington next.
It's Donington next.
Donington next.
Well, I still think Donington, which is next, is the exact opposite. Are you sure?
I've got the calendar here.
I was sure it was Croft next.
Donington next.
Oh, so you're right. Okay. Even so, Donington is the exact opposite of Knockhill almost every way too. It's a much
Undulating though.
but it's a much longer circuit. Is the corners don't flow as well or quickly, apart from maybe the McLean's section of the track. But yeah, I think there will be an expectation that I don't think people would expect them to go and win the race at Donington from here. I think they'd expect to be competitive from here, but you've got to take into circumstance. It'll be different weather. It's a different track.
Quite a few Plato fans might be deluded enough to go, they're going to now win every race till the end of the season.
I mean, that's been the case since they turned a wheel at the start of the season, Sam. But
I know.
Look, as I say, I don't think this should now become, whether they're not running a race, they're underperforming. But I think this needs to now be a benchmark to push on, because they haven't been competitive all season. That's I think a fair comment to say. To now try and score more podiums or be in that top 6 more often.
Yep. My surprise bad. You may not be surprised by this. I've mentioned his name already. Aaron Taylor-Smith.
I was going to cook again.
Didn't realise he was there this weekend.
No, it's a bad time for you to bought a Toyota shirt, really, isn't it? Because you're really hating half the team.
Yeah, I know.
And you're quite cross with Benzie for not getting you a point as well.
But when you compare his performances this weekend to what Shedden has done, and yes, I understand it's Shedden's home circuit and he knows it quite well. Taylor Smith's been nowhere.
Yeah, I agree. And it was
absolutely nowhere.
And he was nowhere at Thruxton.
No.
And he's really on the down at the minute.
In race 3, he was fighting with Bensley for the final point, effectively.
I think we spoke in the preview about when I said about who needs to have a good weekend. I think I highlighted Aaron Taylor-Smith, and it's not working out at all.
It's not.
And it's weird because in the rain at Brands Hatch, he was an animal. Yep, absolutely on the wrong tyre, phenomenal. Won that race with consummate ease. And you thought, bloody hell, Aaron Taylor-Smith really has arrived. Yep. And now it's just fallen off a cliff.
Even in the wet in the first race, where you think, that's what I mean, you should have a good race here. I didn't see anything about him.
No, apart from being caught up in an incident with Smiley, if I remember rightly.
Yeah. Your surprise bad then, sir?
I've gone for Restart Racing. Smiley qualified 4th.
Yeah, I know.
And that's all she wrote. It's just been a poor weekend for them. I think
Dorling's been okay, caught up in a few little bits and pieces. But certainly not the performance we had last time out at Thruxton.
That is one of the reasons. I also think that both of them have been scrappy this weekend. I think they've been involved in untidy incidents, if not penalty-given incidents, untidy incidents. We saw in the race 3, Dorling try quite an interesting move on Sutton, which resulted in quite a late break and lock up.
Both of them were trying to make a move on Sutton.
Yeah, I mean, it was like a ballistic missile going into the hairpin. So I think because of what we saw at Thruxton and how good the car looked at Thruxton, in particular in Dorling's hands and here, didn't impress particularly on the Saturday, apart from Smiley. But then Smiley, dare I say, has become a bit of a habit, not capitalising on that position in the race. And okay, we didn't see why he got shuffled back in race 1. There might be contact. If there is, then that's a different story. But didn't really recover throughout the day. And then again, caught in an incident. You might say, well, it's not his fault. He got put in the gravel. Maybe it's not. But it's another weekend where he's in another set of instances. And I just think all that momentum built from Thruxton is rather deflated.
Talking of deflated,
I am not deflated.
Shall we get on to the predictions?
I am elated with the predictions.
So, as you may have seen in the preview, we go through and predict who may win what across the weekend, and also 3 general predictions that go along with that. So, we'll take you through the winners and losers. So, you had De Leon for pole, I had Rainford. We were a little bit off with the BMWs, unfortunately.
Yep.
We didn't obviously expect Mercedes to do what they have done. And then you went for Ingram to win the sprint, and I went for De Leon to win the sprint. Again, didn't quite work out. And then on to race winners. We both got Sutton, which seems to be a given most weekends now.
Yeah.
And then we both missed out on Ingram, Rainford, and you had De Leon as well.
Yeah.
But we did both get Jack Sears because Patterson was outstanding this weekend.
I won all 3 of ease, yeah.
Exactly. Then we move on to the predictions.
Bingo!
Which is where you've done slightly better once again.
Yes, I'm back in the game.
You have got another clean sweep again this weekend, which makes up for your 2 weeks where you didn't have anything.
It does, massively.
So, you had 4 or more Scottish drivers across all Sunday podiums. Sutton to finish outside the top 10 at least once, and that happened in that final race. And then BMW to be the best independent team by 10 points or more, which we did have to add up at the end of the day because it was a close fought thing in the end. And it was only the fact that Gilbert actually finished that final race that meant you got that point.
But I think I won that one by 13 points in the end, or scored by 13 points. And just for clarity on the Scottish drivers across the podium, that included independent, Jack Sears, etc. So Patterson scored me 3 on his own for the Jack Sears, and obviously Shevin got a outright in race number 1.
He did, hence why I got a prediction correct for Scott being on the overall podium on Sunday. Bensley, Gilbert, Halstead. Gilbert let me down on this, mainly because of Cook.
I think Bensley let you down more. Race 3 is on the soft tyre. He should have got your point in that. I'm sorry. You can go after Gilbert all you want. I think Bensley let you down on that one personally.
So yeah, I had one of those.
You let yourself down by going for Halstead.
And then Audi to score at least 1 podium, and Patterson was close at the end, but no cigar.
Yeah, which means...
Yes.
What were the points?
You've scored 5
I have scored 5.
I have scored 3, which puts me onto a total of 14 points, and I believe you're on a total of 13?
If I am, I'll be very happy with that.
That's correct. It was 11-8.
It was 11-8. Though I didn't bother updating it from before.
So yeah, 14-13 to me. I still carry a point lead.
You do, but I mean...
over midway through the season now.
I'd have absolutely taken this a couple of weeks ago.
Well, yeah, I bet you would. So looks like I might have to go back to being a little more cautious on my general predictions. I still think the race winners... What?
Boring.
Well, you have been this weekend.
Not really.
Fairly.
Oh, what? Starting outside the top 10 is a safe prediction.
Oh dear.
The BMW one, I agree, and I was slightly worried that Shevin was doing bits.
Yep.
But I think the 4 drivers are quite ambitious for Scotland.
I think what we both need to sharpen up on is finding some race winners across the weekend, because we don't seem to particularly do very well at
because we don't want to keep going for Sutton and Ingram. And I'm starting to just ban Sutton and Ingram at this point, because...
Or you get double points if you don't have either of them in, and you get a race winner.
Okay, something like that maybe, because I'm getting a bit fed up of... Because basically you can only pick one race winner because you have to go Sutton and Ingram each weekend.
You didn't this weekend, you only went for one of them.
I didn't, it paid off, in a way. Right, should we stop bickering amongst ourselves and look at the points totals for the touring cars?
Yes, Sutton leads the way.
Sutton's won the championship, Sam. So Sutton stands...
by a lead of 83 points, I believe.
Sutton stands on 327.
Yep.
Ingram on 246. So a fair way back.
Yeah, decent. 81, sorry.
Cameron is now on 233.
Ooh, he's closing it in.
He is closing it in. And then there's a real drop off to Ricky Collard on 180. Charles Rainford in 5th on 169.
This gets really tight now.
It does. Mikey Doble on 167. Then we have Josh Cook on 164. Adam Morgan on 161. Daniel Robot on 161. And Gordon Shedden rounding out the top 10 on 150.
Really close.
If we want to have a quick look at the manufacturers which Napa have won, that's 564 to 404, so 160 point gap.
Wow. Nice checkout.
Thank you. You've done that once, annoyingly. Yeah. In the teams championship, congratulations to Napa on that one as well. 493 to 333, so another 160 lead. So, yeah. I'd have to work out, it's actually the gap here tells me. TSL are great. In the independents, now this has actually got the largest it's been for a while. So Mikey Doble is now on 264. De Leon back on 228. That is quite a gap now. With Rainford back on 227. And Gordon Shedden on 223. So it's still close-ish, but Doble's got a little bit of a lead now at the top of there. In the Independent Teams Championship, we have got LKQ Eurocarts parts with Powermax Racing on 300. 17-point lead over WSR with 283. Interestingly, that was a weekend with Dexter Patterson. He's now only about 38 points off Restart Racing as a whole, which is quite impressive.
Jeez.
And then in the Jack Sears, Dexter Patterson leads the way there. He's got a bit of a gap now of 17 points over James Dorlin. 306 plays 289. Osborne, who is still being counted in this. There is some confusion whether he's in this championship or not, but TSL is still counting him, so he's on 208. Lewis Selby on 206. Nick Hamilton on 191. And then a drop off to Buxton, who's clearly not racing anymore. And then Bensley, Gilbert, and Halstead, who has scored 29 points in the Jack Sears this weekend. Yep. And I think that for all the laughs and jokes we've had about Halstead, he has finished all 3 races. It doesn't matter. He's
finished the spin.
He's finished all 3 races in his first weekend back. It's a pretty good effort overall.
Yeah. Any further thoughts on this weekend? I was glad to see a bit of rain.
Me too.
Brought in a bit more entertainment, and
Agreed.
I'd quite like to see some rain at Donington, which would be quite fun.
Unless we go.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll see.
No, I've really enjoyed the weekend. Knockhill's a superb circuit. We've seen some great racing in the touring cars and across the sport package. I think particularly after Thruxton, it's come as quite a nice medicine because Thruxton wasn't a particularly exciting weekend for any of the racing. This was a lot better. I'm disappointed in some ways that after 6 rounds, the championship is done. I know you might say you can never write off. It's done, but that is 160 points. That is 9 wins. That's 9 wins. Sutton can afford not to come to the next 3 meetings, and Ingram still might not be ahead.
No, there's an 80-point gap in the drivers.
Oh, in the drivers. Well, even so,
thinking of the manufacturers.
Okay, so
yes, Sutton could afford not to come to the next weekend and a half and still be ahead of the championship, which is quite astonishing. His form this season, and I think you just have to admire it.
You do, yeah, 100% you do.
Oh no, the championship's over already. You have to just go, brilliant driver.
I agree, and I get that, but yeah, from a championship point of view, it would be nice if it was a bit closer. But you're right, and I always defend Sutton. I never sort of get into this sort of downbeat about it. What he does is ridiculous. It's astonishing.
It's going to be a record breaker by the end of the season.
Yep, absolutely.
5 titles. He's already over, or he's now joint on the grid for the most amount of race wins, along with Shedden on 54. So that will be another record that he'll possibly be hunting down.
If he sticks around, Plato's going to start sweating.
Oh yeah.
Because I never thought I'd see that be broken. No. But if he commits to the next 3-4 seasons,
can't wait for Plato to jump back in the car when that Merc gets good.
Might see him at Donington now.
Yeah.
But no, it's been a good weekend of racing. I say the Sutton thing is what it is, but I think you have to be a little bit more hardcore as a watcher and take your eyes off the front and look at what's there. We discussed the midfield and how tight that is. We've seen today Cook from the back of the grid, Rainford from the back of the grid, Moffat from the back of the grid. There are some real class drivers in this field away from just Sutton and Ingram. I think that we have to, ourselves included, just take our eyes off the front of the championship a little bit and look for the really good battles in the mid pack, which we've seen again today.
Yeah. If you haven't done already, please.
What are your thoughts?
You've heard my thoughts. I enjoyed the rain this weekend.
Yeah.
That's
what you said, though.
I have a very similar feeling to you as the championship is probably done, and the independence drivers title is going to be the one where it goes probably right down to the wire. A non-finishing that makes a massive difference in that championship because everyone pretty much scores points anyway. I
have a final thought as well, actually. I was actually quite refreshed today that we only had one podium where Sutton was on it in that way. I enjoyed the fact that race 1 was a completely new podium for the season. I enjoyed that race 3 was a completely new podium for the season. I'm gutted that Dex couldn't find a way onto the overall podium today. I know it got you a point, but I genuinely don't care. I'm a big fan of Dex, so I think there's a chance he might get it for the end of the season as well. But it was quite refreshing. I said it yesterday in the Saturday review that we had a real point of difference this weekend, and I hopefully we'll see that the rest of the season. Exactly.
Yeah. As we've already mentioned, we are going to Donington next time out in 2 weeks' time. We may or may not be there. Depends what the weather's up to and what we're both up to. But until then, we will, of course, bring you any updates. And as Russ said, penalty corner. If there are any further penalties from the weekend, will be updated on our social media platforms.
Well, bye-bye.
Yeah. Speak to you again soon.